The polar ice caps are melting and someday we'll all be underwater. But for now, let's talk about the SPL. 3 games this week, and as we get into it, it started off with LG versus E United. That was our Thursday match, and really I'm going to cover LG because this is an interesting team. Everybody's got something to prove. We've got some has-beens, we've got some never-wases, and we've got 2 rookies, Joshi and the Mollusk, and honestly, they're popping off. Their first game, they go against E United. Now, admittedly, they did have a sub, and we'll jump into that in just a minute. But at the end of the day, the Mollusk got first blood. He gets second blood. And Joshi gets 13 kills. These are guys that have never played in the Pro League, and they're going head-to-head against people like Vedium, against people like Benji, and they're looking out of control. So that's absolutely something that you want to be paying attention to. Look at the Mollusk and watch what he can do with Joshi, at least in the beginning of their sets. They seem to run out of gas, and I think that just might be a lack of experience, but we'll kind of see how that goes on. But for now, they've just been crushing the opposition, as I said, more towards the early parts. LG themselves have a very interesting style of play. Zelia, very creative. Kiki, very creative. Ocean's very creative. Joshi, well, he plays Hachiman. But these guys do interesting things. They have interesting strategies. And right now, they're all based around the idea of area denial. They like to pick Zeus, and they like to drag you into it, and then they like to press 3 and kill you for it. They really demand this area denial composition. You see a lot of Ganesh, see a lot of Zeus. And then you see Zeus banned and they can't find a win. So as the team matures, maybe we'll see that change. But for now, that's really the core of how they win. It's all about the Zeus and all about the area control. So got to keep an eye on that if you're a fan of LG. Now, I said E United did have a substitute along the way. Ice Baby was literally on a plane from Bulgaria during game number 1. So obviously they call up Chapo. He's local. I mean, I guess that's the dude. But, I mean, he's got big muscles. No, he played well. He played well. Ultimately not able to win the game, but honestly not his bad. That said, United obviously improved when they bring in Ice Baby. They've been teaming and scrimming with him, so they win. And this is going to be the theme with LG. Their opponent just continues to get better as they see more and more. So game 2, United start kind of here and they wrestle with LG. In game 3, well, United wrestle a little bit less with LG. And then game 4, they just kind of step on LG. So this one winds up going E United's direction 3-1, but LG absolutely a team to watch. You're not going to want to miss it. E United does play twice this week. They went up against SK Gaming, but I casted that. And when I cast games, my brain really just melts. Trust me, you'll know if you actually listen to me call the game. So with that in mind, I brought somebody along to help me describe that one.
Hey, it's Finch, and I luckily was on the desk for that one, so I have a better idea of what was going on. I promise, I just wasn't AFK sitting there in the tier 1 seat. And if E United's LG set was an easy one, then their one up against SK was absolutely not. It was a long, grueling battle with a back and forth where the meta developed throughout it. And to me, that's the most interesting thing about it. The picks and bans phase has become its own part. To me, it's the most important phase of the game, because if it's important how you shoot your guns, it's important which guns you picked, right, before you go into it, and that's exactly what ended up happening throughout this set. And first off, E United won game 1, and the legend of Ice Baby continues. He's the only one undefeated. He picks Nemesis and goes like 7-0-12 or something ridiculous like that, and he does it into a composition that's full of tanks where he can isolate members and slow them down and get a bunch of kills. He keeps this team relevant. So, you know, the Ice Baby mythos is looking pretty good. And then games 2 and 3 happen, and all of a sudden things don't look so good, and they put big man tings on things like a Muzen Cobb and not on traditional mages, and they're not able to gain any pressure. And Bel Air reminds you, hey, I used to be pretty darn good at Smite. Remember, I used to be one of those solo laners that you were worried about, and he plays really well for them out of the solo lane. And then you start to remember, oh yeah, this SK team is good because like Zapman's over there and he can just solo you at any given point, and Neil Ma is willing to be level 1 for the whole game and just harass you at your jungle camps. And suddenly it becomes clear this SK team is actually pretty good too. And they have a lot of strong pieces on this team. Paul and Sam aren't the only ones that make this team competitive, and you start to see that throughout set 2 and 3. So for me, the second and third games, those are about Bel Air in particular, and obviously Paul and Sam playing really well too. But really it was about the solo lane stepping up and being able to compete with E United. And all of a sudden, they're up 2-1, and you think E United are about to struggle, and then Freya starts being let in, and Vedium starts to look good, and you're like, okay, well now United's back. They've grabbed that game. We're 2-2 now. We're going into game 5. This is going to be the big climactic match that we all wanted, right? And then SK let King Arthur through. And you're thinking, okay, they let King Arthur through. Why are they doing that? Well, they're just going to pick it, right? Their first pick here, they're going to take King Arthur. No, they take Camazot. And you're like, okay, that's the counter to King Arthur. I get it. We'll just beat King Arthur. But then they let them get King Arthur Shibalanke with the first 2 picks. And you're like, well, that's pretty good. So even though they had Camazots, he's not enough of a counter to King Arthur to where you could just let that pick go and that be the only response that you drafted. And even though King Arthur was there, that wasn't the only thing that looked good for them. Big Man Ting's able to get back on the right in that Game 5 as well, and he was able to look really strong. So eventually, as good as E United were, they were able to close that one out with some big play out of the middle lane, big play out of the solo lane. Unfortunately, SK Gaming came up just that bit short. But those are both teams to look out for. I wouldn't have put either one in my top 3 or either one in my bottom 3, but now all of a sudden I'm reconsidering it. Either one of those teams could be the best at the end. As good as that set was, though, that wasn't the only action that we saw. We had even another match that happened between 2 other pretty good teams.
Hey, it's back to me. LG played again, so I'm going to talk pretty much the same thing I said before. It's all about the rookies here. LG went head-to-head against Dig, and, well, this was actually different. We saw Jormungandr, and it's really hard to miss him because he's the size of the goddamn map. Now, with that said, Jormungandr looked pretty good. Xayah played him in the solo lane. He's not a support. Don't try to do that. But he absolutely kind of ran things. And again, game number 1 for LG looks fantastic. They get creative. Joshi and Malik do fantastic things. Guess what? Malik's got another first blood. That's just what this guy does. Now, I say that. But then game number 2, they play Hebo, and it just looks a little bit kind of bad, and Mollusk isn't able to get off to that first big start. He's forever behind, and then they just forever lose. The rest of the set is honestly kind of forgettable as Dignitas just continue to beat Dignitas. My notes literally say Dig mad, so sometimes it's just that simple. But at the end of the day, LG definitely sticking to the Zeus juice, understanding that they played through their rookies, and kind of developing this identity. I need to see more. I want to get more. Xayah, I think, has a lot of potential, especially on a creative team like this. A lot of oddball picks. It's going to be right at home with Kiki playing whatever he decides to play in support. So you know what? I'm all in, but this one definitely goes Dignitas in 4 games since LG takes game number 1. And that's going to be their thing. I think they're just going to continue to win game 1, unless people ban Zeus game 1. I've been saying that since 2013. Ban Zeus, but I don't know. We'll see how it turns out. But 3 games in the set, or 3 games in the week, that's what we've seen here in week number 3. We'll put a dot on that one, and we'll catch you next time.